All you on here. You talking about paranormal stuff today?
From A to Z. So
Okay, fantastic.
all the way
First,
to the paranormal.
let's establish. I've never met you before. You've never met me, so we got to get that out of the way. You speak any other languages? I'm a polyglot myself.
I'm studying other languages, but go steady and slowly. But
Okay.
it's a big
No
difference.
worries. So tell me a little bit. You're talking about the paranormal. You're talking about feelings that you've had today.
Yeah.
Tell me about growing up because I've noticed a lot of people, they start out as kids feeling like they understand the world, they understand everything. And then as the world gets bigger, they understand less and less. And then they start to get this intuition, this feeling. They start to pick up on the energies of the world. Me and my wife both do that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it started like child. How I see it is, and I study that a lot. Is we experience the outer world more likely when we're little kids, and we go internally when we what we go as grow up. But we start to live in the body. Physically, it's also proven that the skull is soft when you are a little child, so we experience the world more like a DMT state, where it
Uh huh.
starts and it starts to slow down, and when life goes on till you die, DMT comes at the end of it. But it doesn't mean you cannot experience it. And they call it enlightenment. They have so many words for it. Enlightenment, as you have to see what it is about while you go through those stages, and what you experience then. It later is to pick as an adult, to pick it up, not to avoid it. And that's the beauty about it. You start to see, hey, wait a minute. So did anything happen particular that like on a later stage comes back?
Hmm.
That's natural. Everything is nature. A lot of people have beliefs in things that say, hey, this is the way. But if you truly understand it, but you got to see what comes out of nature. Everything is natural. Paranormal is nature. All those things are from nature. And nature is bigger than we realize, because we say that this is nature. This is a perception. This is it. But why people want to debate it about it? But that's what we do when we get older. But it is like, let's put it on the table and yeah, have a conversation about it. But it's where you start to observe, hey, what are those particular things that start happening? Now what I just did readings about, it says do pay attention about it, but it's still your decision. But what if you don't? Let's say the world just goes tomorrow like in hyperspace, and like, oh shit, we're screwed in a certain kind of way. Or you prep yourself and say, I'd like to rock that shit, right? And that's just the difference. But it's kind of going towards the same. We become more aware and conscious.
Okay, so let me just jump on because you mentioned a bunch of different topics at one. You mentioned paranormal, nature, you mentioned DMT, all of which I can talk on. I'll just kind of give you an idea of where my headspace is at.
Yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
so obviously, when it comes to all those things, I'm very educated, and I don't want to speak too much on that. I was almost put in prison for 2 decades because of my experience in that field. So we're one and the same here. We've experienced death during life. We understand. Okay. Now, my father-in-law just passed away yesterday twice and then came back. So for about 45 minutes or so, he passed on to the next world. Now, I've had a theory for a long time that, in the same way they've done studies where there's children that have died and come back to life. The children that are Christian, they go up, they meet Jesus, they come back down. Children that are Buddhist, they go up, they meet Buddha, they come back down. Even children that are in Islam and practice Islam, they go up, they meet Allah, and they come back down. And then the parents get so excited, they say, see, my religion was right. It was proven. Now, what I've told people for a long time is in the same way in your dream state, in your unconscious state, your brain is working faster. And when you can look at the clock, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, you go to sleep, have a dream, hours have gone by, you wake up, it's 4:30 or 4:20 in your case. Now, that's your pineal gland releasing DMT. That is DMT acting in just a small way while you're in that dream state. Now, they've also done studies when you die and you're in a CAT scan, your brain lights up like a Christmas tree, flooding itself with DMT, creating that heaven that we so also experience when we're on our DMT meditation trips, ayahuasca trips, and things like that, all coming from nature. You find DMT in every single plant, vine, every single human, and yet it's the most illegal substance on earth. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is, but it is still active. But that's the thing what people believe because they have a profound experience. Like say you take an ayahuasca, but it is not the difference that I experienced those things. Definitely when I'm older, and say that stuff what I see is real. Not that it's always touchable we see, but it's still that's a perception because you got to see where's the information. Did I or did I not? And that's just where it lies, right? The physical proof where we always want to get it. And it also what I learned from it is still you're ready.
Yeah, so you mentioned being ready, and you also
Yeah.
mentioned, not everyone has those profound experiences. So I did illegal pharmacology for a while, as well as
Mm,
shamanism and guiding people through these trips. And what I found
yeah.
is, just like any medicine, when it's not regulated, when it's not prepared, you can have, people that say, "Hey, man, just put some DMT, some fumarate, sprinkle it on your marijuana, smoke your stuff, you can have your thing." Whereas I would study people for weeks on end, talking to them about the
Mm,
topics that both inhibit their life and things that they want to focus on for the future. I would prepare their dosage along with other psychedelics. Some people are acid or coke or molly people, and others are shrooms and sassafras people and alcohol people. Certain people react to more artificial drugs, whereas others react to more nature based drugs. You have to build the trip around them. Now, once they're actually ready for the DMT, they're not going to be able to take the second hit that they need to truly blast off, as it's now being called. So you need a shaman to be there to guide you and to physically allow you to inhale that DMT. Now, when you're experiencing that with a person, you also have to be in connection with them. So you have to make sure that you're also prepared yourself. And this should be an hours long trip, even though the actual DMT experience is so short. This is something that I've taken. Now, I want to know, in your case, do you think it's possible for everyone to experience, when prepared and when organized properly, the DMT trip that me and possibly you and many others have experienced that includes death, sights, visions, profoundness, and an understanding of the earth, along with many physical effects like a lack of intuition, a lack of wanting to commit suicide, a lack of need for depression meds, even correction of bipolar and ADD. That's what I've seen. I want to get your opinion on that. Have you seen anything that severe as I have?
yeah, I studied that alone for a long time, but you don't. The truth about it is you don't lack anything. It is what you experience. Of course, when you talk about those esoteric substances, those what do you call them, hallucinogenics and whatever, um, if your body can handle it, that's what I had personally, for example. And it was on one point I booked an ayahuasca session, but my body can't handle it. It's very dangerous, so you have to be aware about it. If you're good, you're healthy. I'm like, have a trip. What are you waiting for? It's just about the other thing is that more about not the government, but the people's acceptance about this thing, what's already growing, but it still is at the moment. And besides it, let's say you can't take it, you still have it. And those signs of a lot of things like OCDC is one of those things. People have physical ailments, they go in a certain kind of trip, but they don't know how to deal with it. They don't have the information. They say because it's this, it's got to be that. But let's explore in a more broader sense what it is. In those ancient things, for one thing they study is when you have sleep problems and people have body paralysis, right?
Yep.
And not have the full experience. Stop being afraid and get out of your body and move around and come back. One,
Well,
two,
yeah. Once
three.
again, like you said, if you're able to,
Yep.
I talked the same thing. I actually have a Kundalini tattoo on me, and that's the meditation, of course, in which you can
Mm,
access that DMT that's naturally occurring in your body and
yep.
extract it from your pineal gland, allow it to flow through you in a conscious state. Do you think?
Transcendental meditation. Yes.
Yes, perfect. I think see, that's why it's important to establish that you and I probably have a lot in common, probably have a
Yeah.
lot of the same knowledge, but we also have a lot of different things. And I want to get aside those first two so that we can talk about where we maybe disagree. And I think we've
Of
already
course.
touched on a few points.
Mm,
Maybe, and this is a personal thing, and I want to see if you agree or disagree. I believe that it is possible for anyone to access that part of their brain with enough preparation and enough guidance. What do you think about that?
it's for me. It's a more when you start to see, but I just did a reading about it. It was very funny. It's more we have all those gifts, but you have to see what is unique about you. So
Sure.
every situation is different. And even on the same one, you would say, hey, there's that category. What makes it so difficult? You have to really see what a person like get anything you experience onto a list. Maybe you don't understand it yet. It's not organized, but that's okay. You make a big start. So you can look back in anything that starts to show the bigger picture. And that's where you like have to go. And uh, yeah, look at those things and see if there's anything not knowledge about it, of course, that you can information that clarifying thing that you get. But it starts so simple. I had a, for example, was I'm going on a bigger way then, but that's what everybody says. um, it's but it counts for everybody. And I had a ghost box turn on, and there's a lot of chatter what you hear, and I'm a very skeptic person, but also the spiritual aspect, wonderful. But I was listening through it, and I said, I had it. Can you get a cup of coffee or tea and have a conversation with each other? I just like to see it clarified, and that.
Let me hear about.
Yeah, but let me finish.
Sure.
Between the words, there was on the background, and it just said, Martin, just love, and it just hit me so strong. It's just what I needed to hear, and it was on this point, and I was like, okay, it doesn't say anything back. And I was like, try it without the ghost box, and it did work. And and eventually it says it just is. Love just is. Yeah, but how do I have to learn it, grow into it? It just is.
What do you
I'm a Russell. Just let me finish for a moment, otherwise it gets very confusing. So I was at the end of the road. Just it said, so how can I perceive it then, right? It said, just turn it on, like you turn it on and see what happens. Yeah, it's like you start to observe everything that goes around you. It's like a reflection of other people, other things. Whatever happens, could be YouTube, could be anything. It's the synchronicity that gives you that feedback. And that's that awakening up call that you get. It's like it could I heard healing into it. I heard like um, empathy. They estimate how you are, so there's still this judgment, but they don't know. So but what is this message to me? So you give constantly that feedback to yourself, and that's where you have to kind of focus on.
Mhm.
But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm bad at picking up on the social cues that most people are able to pick on pretty easily. I'm what you call a very high empath, but mildly autistic in the sense that I can't really tell when people are ready to hear me speak, or when it's time for me to stop speaking. Um, as it comes to your own death, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping topics here, but you seem to be ready to talk about this. When it comes to your own death, how planned do you think it should be allowed to be? I mean, is it truly better to live up until old age? You know, my family comes from a long line of people that have committed suicide. It's very typical in my family for us to either try and fail or try and succeed, and that only happens once per person. Am I right?
Yeah.
Now, is that something that you think is absolutely bad, or do you think that suicide in general and the control of your own death is something that should be allowed? Tell me about that.
Yes and no. It's still your choice, but it is the thing where you have to look. It's where the most simplest region where that starts. So when you, it's about prevention, right? Before those things gonna happen. When you know about my family, how I can be ahead of them? So for me, that never happens. Your own comes into life and then leaves again and does the same thing all over again. Death is the illusion. It is not. It's what it wants to say all the time. Who's
So you
telling
believe in
that to you?
reincarnation?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It exists, but it doesn't exist because here is the illusion, like the mindset. But if you never want to accept that, death and life becomes for you the realization. As long as you'd like to let go of it, because it's so scary. What should I do then? Why not? What are you afraid about? You see nothing yet, and it's like the matrix in a matrix in a matrix in a mirror, a mirror, and a mirror, and it continues to forever. It's those
Hmm.
biggest questions where it goes to mythology, and it was the same old same from here to Allah to blah blah blah, and wherever you want to go, it says it stays the same. But you have to see. It's what I say. It's the most strongest point in shamanism too. You know that definitely when you study shamanism, it's standing in the now. It goes every side. Let's go everywhere, right?
So the
But
one thing
it's
that I
where you,
mentioned,
yeah, no, it's where you observe in the middle. So in the now, and which of those arrows is pointing outwards or inwards? So you have an emotional side and a mental side. Emotionals in, that's why you see mostly around an eagle who has the overside arrows that represent your inner, and the other one is the outer region of signals as your physical body. And you just pay attention. Hey, what I noticed, and that's the meditation. That's it. Sounds boring, but better that than create confusion, because that won't help you either. When you allow that, the strangest things start happening. Starts to unfold, not to grow, but unfold. You're already it. You're already divine. They wonder, is it by religion or otherwise? Is something keeping us here, or do we keep ourselves here? And we already know the answer, and you can't go around it. It's like, it wasn't me, right? And that's the sometimes a little effed up thing about it. So you know. So what are you
I
gonna do about it, right?
I think in the same way that I tell people that have insomnia or in general have a skewed sleep schedule where they exhaust themselves to a point where they have to fall asleep, that it's okay to enter that state of sleep, that state of release. And in that same way, in a conscious state, it's okay to calm yourself down and go into a state of meditation. Now, I compare those two to death very frequently. Many people are living their life in fear of death. And when I tell them that it should not be feared, but instead it should be your own control, that's where everyone is in agreement except for me. A lot of people are kind of saying, well, at an emotional level, like you said, if I'm feeling extremely sad, the only solution is death. Well, no, that's shouldn't be the decision maker there. And in a mental side, well, my life is ruined, my money's gone, I have nothing left. Consciously, they say, well, now my life must end because mentally I've logic, the reasoning, I've reasoned out that it can't continue. No, that shouldn't be the reason either because it should be a balance. Now, I would shoot the idea that there's a third side, that there is an independent consciousness. There's a soul consciousness. In the same way that you can decide to fall into your trip when you are on hallucinogenics, in the same way you can decide to fall asleep and release that tension, in the same way you can decide to meditate, you can also decide that you are in control of your life and how long you're here. Now, obviously, the goal is to take on as much experience, as much conversation, as much processes as you can while you're here. But after a certain point, you have to accept that whether it's cancer or a bus that takes you out of this world, you have to be in control of the fear, and in a certain situation, you have to be in control of whether or not you're going to take yourself out. Now, I tell people this all the time. I spoke to a woman that has cancer throughout her entire body, and she was wondering how she was going to go out because at this point, no doctor, no person is going to recommend committing suicide. They're going to recommend to her, well, you have cancer, let it slowly consume your body until you die one day. That's the goal, right?
That's one
No,
way
no.
to say it. Yeah, that's one way
Yeah,
to say it.
what I told her is, now listen, what's your plan? She says, well, I want to overdose on heroin. I want to go out in a blissful state. And I said, okay, understood. Make sure you save your brain because in those final few minutes of brain death, and your brain is flooding with its own concoction of DMT. Most say, oh, you go through your whole life, you go through all the experiences, you pass on. I say you're experiencing the thousands of years promise in every religious text in those few final minutes of brain death. Go for that. And would you tell a person to blow their own brains out? Absolutely not, because it destroys all processes up here in those final moments of death. But I would highly recommend to people, if they're looking to go out at an old age or when things are finally finished for them, in a way that does not consume their brain. I'm one of the few that would not like to die in their sleep, but would like to die actively.
I have a very beautiful story, and it was with somebody I met here. I gave her a Kundalini experience, and she feels like so amazing. And you definitely know when you gave one, it's like, or you had one yourself. I hope to ever experience it myself, but maybe I'm already in the States. So, but anyway, she was like lit as a Christmas tree, happy and all that. And she was into witchery, so she's already the particular kind of crazy person, what people say. But I see it like more very intrigued by everything. Um, experience the world more broadly than others. That's a more beautiful way to say it. But I just had a conversation. How was it about it? Right? Yeah, I feel great. I feel like $1 million. And she did her laundry. And at one moment I said, "What is that in your room?" Like, what do you mean? I say something is looking at you from the beacon and does that all the time. And I say, "What do you know about history about the building and the person that maybe lived there?" Nothing. So I have to grasp from nothing what it did in my mind's eye as a medium. We all have it. I saw the creature crawling onto the wall and started to look closer. Not very dark or anything, but just interested. Like, what are you doing? And is this woman here? And I let the experience just happen, and something, was strange. It's not strange at all. It just started, and I said, "Do you have a hallway that your neighbor lives across you?" And she basically was stunned, like, "How could I know that, right? I'm not living there." And I saw it crawl over the ceiling, and um, loved to be there, but when he was with her, no, thank you. And okay, just I observed it. And another thing, what started happened to me because I'm an empath, I can be like an emotional sponge towards if somebody coughs, I'm experiencing that physically, and also with a ghost. And I was like, okay, what's happening? Just allow it, right? It's like I am dying. I'm not dying, but the experience is pretty epic. And I start to see just the picture. He killed himself. I was like, now it starts to make sense. So it was, and then I start seeing a girl leaving his building. They separated,
Hmm.
and that's the reason for him why he committed suicide. Now the thing starts to come right. So I say, well, do you want to go to the light? And it was like first hesitated. I said, well, we can have a look. You don't have to do anything against your will. And it's like, okay, let's at least have a look then. And it was like a dog crawling, right? As no human figure at all. What people call ghouls in the paranormal. And I was like, well, just take my hand or my arm. And I took my hand and I said, open a portal and let's see who comes through then. And a girl comes through and he says, this is not real. He said, I know it's real. I said, why don't you touch your hand and let's look if it's real or not. If it's not real, if it's just an illusion, it will dissipate. And we're going through this, and he hesitated. I said, you don't have to be afraid. I'm here. We walk towards it, and he touches her hand, and he's like, no way, no way, no way. This is real. How? How? I said, yes, I told you it was real. And just this explosion happened, like a blast, like, BAM! And he stood like a human being again. And, and they left. And I thought that was it, right? I said, I did my thing. This dude is done as a medium or a psychic, right? As a helper, as guidance. And I just talked to the girl again. I said, "What do you experience?" I told her nothing. I says, "I don't know. It was like it was like a blast or something." Exactly. She couldn't know. And the thing happened next to her was there's a lot of love coming in, like just from a ball. I call it from a ball, whatever you want to call it. And it just opened this window again and let me have a look, like something allowing me to look if it's self or higher divinity, whatever you want to call it. And just I see the two standing next to each other, and she says to him, "How can you think of me like that?" Like, really? And I have to laugh so hard about it. And it was kind of recognizing, yeah, I kept myself to it because I made it into an own perception that that was the reality. No, it was not. Still, somebody loves you. And even if it was that on the case, it could be a further stage, right? What we call towards twin flames. It's the other half of the soul that I meet. It is a process. But if you have a limited view, how will you ever know? If that's here, up there, you creating your reality also there, and still their experience.
Hmm.
And that's why they mostly say trust it, trust that path, go beyond your fate, your destiny. Destiny reveal. We're so afraid when we have fate or where we need to be, our goal, and we say, "Yeah, I like that." But when there's destiny, oh my god, the fear comes. About what? About what? You just don't know yet. And that's the beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's so overwhelmingly beautiful. You're just scared of it because it's in a relationship too. You think at a relationship, yeah, I'm there. How sure are you? And you're
Hmm.
afraid to let go. And it can be on deeper, profound ways. And don't start to state what it is. You're not there yet, but you know it's good. It's when man the tears come and you know it's real and it's beautiful. It's there. We all like to be there, but we don't like to go through the constantly. We're blocking ourselves basically at everything, worried about when the death is gonna come. It will come soon enough. So enjoy yourself. It's a space we need to fill up in between, right? Have that
Hmm.
experience. That thing starts to unravel. Only what you need is this secret ingredient. Is in this standing in this. Just imagine a field of light standing around you, and it broadens everywhere. But you have to remind yourself constantly to do it. Otherwise, we don't have that clarity anymore, mentally, emotionally. And sometimes you have two different kind of people that I always say to me. You have to sometimes put it in the box. I don't like to do that, but sometimes to create a sense of clarity is it in box A or box B? So do you know or don't you? So we start with simple things in life: want, desire, and need. So you get necessity, wish, and then dot dot dot. But can you already fill it in or not? There's a difference. Some have a high cognitive state and some don't. Both are just as worthy, but there's a good start. The more difficult one is who has the cognitive state. Like those diff I have, that's not easy. Seeing the most horrifying thing. I sometimes like, dude, do I have to deal with that? Oh, why not? What am I afraid of? Actually, not necessary. And it could be in dreams, what is very potent right now. It could be self reflection mostly, or what you're experiencing going through your process. But there's this cognitive state, and if that also comes in your reality, it's slow signs to start to happen. I have to see it goes a little bit stuck, perhaps. So what do you start to notice then? It's constantly observe what is happening. Yeah, and that's where I'm at now. But yeah, I will go at the specific thing what you're dealing with now, right now that you're dealing with, and that's the what you're dealing with now is the best way to say it is. That's being highlighted by um, synchronicity. And what do you notice? So see if we already have the information or not. So that's for me
Okay.
what I always use readings and things into it.
Okay. I wish I could lie and say that I completely understand what you said,
That
but
doesn't even matter.
I didn't understand the words, but I understood the conversation that you were having, and I appreciate that. So good on you for having that, the empathetic ability to convey what you're trying to say without using the proper words.
Yeah, it's even sometimes I see it like better because I sometimes I say it's a different language. We still understand. It's what in ancient times they have tongues, right? Till they start to figure out how it works, you could speak every language and stuff and understand your being. But it is a process. And the more you start to open up, the more you allow your empathy, the more you allow those emotions to come in. Don't avoid them. Don't start to go at everything that you have to react at. A thought, action, emotion. Everything we want to just instantly react to. Here I have a Coca-Cola can. No. Observe. Mastery is to observe what's in there in between. So, yeah, maybe it's just not frozen. So that is the master god of in Buddhism also. They say observe what is there. They're trying, but a lot of things they have to realize if that yoga, what they practice in Tibetan, is 1,000 years old, but it came from much older. What was Tantra? Tantric is the wheel, destiny. If you're going to define it, say what it is, you're stopping yourself. That's what they said about Buddha. Okay. I had everything. It was beautiful. Eventually, right? I have all the necessities in life. But dude, you're blocking yourself. And that is his way. And if how much information did they know about then what probably dissipated from the world? What certainly one day was not. Civilization just ended sometimes. Sometimes people disappeared off the planet and we still have questions about it. Yeah, why not? Probably they're already there looking down on us. It's just they're there and we're here. It's the same if we're living and the dead is not dead. They're just observing from the other side. And then this, what does it mean for you? So things that I start to notice with you is like you look at a lot of people that are deaf, and most people just don't realize that is in a way they're up there and you realize I'm still here and it's not fair, but it does not matter. It's still there because we say this physical. This is a slow down world. Everything is slowed down. It's very funny what we do a thing, and it always surprises me. I have to laugh so hard about it. When you have a camera and you throw a tennis ball at somebody's face, you see the face go. And when we speed it up again, right? Just the basics is when everything sees time is slowed down. This material, this dense energy is slowed down. And I was sometimes surprised too when something very goes fast. But we know how fast ever it goes or how slow it goes. You just know. So pay attention. Don't say straight away what it is. It's just observe. And when you have this meditative state, they say first to do that with your thoughts. Just stop it, look at it, that's it. Because mostly this in Buddhism is random thoughts. So when you learn that, first you release your stress from all that brain activity. And then you let the random thoughts come back in. So when you practice it, your start to the energy goes down again. It starts to become neutral. And when they
Hmm.
even don't talk about feelings, that has to do with it. But and then they let see what is the random, so the not so random things that pops up once in a while. Now you can do the same with emotion, but still, what is better if you can do it? If you already have it naturally, what stands in between and what comes to the foreground? And that could be a great, interesting topic where you can talk about openly in your way how you ever want to talk about it.
Martin,
And
it was such a pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to talk with you. I'm going to
yes,
head out for today, but I hope for us to have another conversation soon.
yeah, maybe write some things down that you say I really, because otherwise it goes that I always have that it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
So the more specific, I do that with reading students. Like if I get, for example, a reading that I do, like I want to have a genuine what spirit says, or people put the energy and the work into it. Man, you'll be stunned what's going to be in the reading. It's like, how is this possible?
Hmm.
So, or to talk about, yeah. But it was a pleasure for having you here, man.
You have
Appreciate
an
it.
amazing day, my friend, and be safe, stay woke, stay conscious.
Absolutely, my friend. Take care,
So
buddy.
long.